let's segue into it then. Tell us who you guys are and name of your company and what you do.
So I'm Terrence Musto. Everybody calls me T. I own Fabbro Industries in Voorheesville, New York, and we are a metal fabrication, prototyping, research and development company. And the gentleman to my left is Bob Manasier. Bob?
I don't have to talk. Look at
That's
that.
nice.
I'll do it for you too. This is Bob Manasier.
People do it for you.
It's pretty good. No, Bob Manasier. I spent my whole life starting companies around the globe. CEO of IFP Films, InFocus Brands, EDA Funding, and a few others. But we spend most of our time being white label deployed teams around the world for people to start, grow, scale, or exit their companies.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And I got to tell you, I'm trying to figure. You look so familiar.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you like Insta famous or like famous? Like
just on the post office wall.
He's not even on Instagram.
I am a rec commissioner in Saratoga, so.
I mean, maybe that's it. Yeah, I was like, when he walked in, I was like, man, wow, he looks familiar. I can't figure out where. You've got one of those like Hollywood faces, though. You know.
Well,
a face for radio.
You did own a film, I mean, you still own a film studio.
Yeah, but I don't put myself in front of the camera.
That's the key.
I mean, everything that you guys just said sounds really fast. Like, I have 700 questions now. Like,
we have no answers.
That's perfect. No, and thanks for joining us, everybody. We never did the show intro. We just got right into it, didn't we?
Yeah, we're just so excited to jump
in. We're not even going to do the show. The hell with the intro.
We're in it now.
We're in it. We're deep. We'll record. We'll fix it in post.
I had questions for you. So
oh, nice.
I always, when we started working together on this kind of new joint venture that we're doing, I knew that Bob. We'd worked together for years before this on things, and then we'll get into why we came together. But this is a side story. Knowing that Bob was from film, when he came and we'll shoot stuff, and he comes with like a professional film crew.
Yeah.
And I'm there with like my iPhone.
Yeah.
Doing stuff for Instagram, whatever. And so he comes, they got lights and all this stuff. And he's like, we got to do this and that. And I said, I'm pretty sure you can just fix it in post. And he was like, do you know what fix it in post means? I said, I got no idea. I said, but I hear people say it a lot. So let's just roll it. Let's strike the set. We'll fix it in post. And he was like, you got no clue what you're talking about.
That's hilarious.
I might not have been that kind either. But
for sure not.
That's funny. But I used to have a guy that worked with us, Todd, and all the time I would be like, same thing. I'd be like, oh, dude, let's just fix that in post. And he would look at me like, no, we need to get it in the camera now and then make our life post-production a lot easier. I'm like, yeah, but it sounds like so much work, man. Like,
that's what he was thinking.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I was like, it's a lot of work for somebody else later. It's
Right.
For me right now.
For me right now.
Yeah,
like, come
100%.
on, man. That's hilarious. So tell us a little bit about Fabbro, because just tell us before I butcher the question.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Make me look good, too.
So great question. Thank you for the question.
You're welcome.
We basically, so my background is as a custom motorcycle builder. So, I went to school for business. I got my degree in business, concentration in finance, worked in that for a minute. It wasn't 100% for me. And I had been kind of tinkering and just fell in love with motorcycles. And we're talking like 2008. I graduated college 2010. So choppers were still a thing and they were hot and all this kind of stuff. And I was just kind of like, man, I think I can do that. Like, no reason why I should. My dad's a doctor. My mom's assistant principal of a all-girls high school. But there was just something in me that I was like, man. So I started tinkering. I did stuff in their garage on weekends, and I just fell in love with it. And then so I built a chopper in their garage. And then after college, I was like, I think I'm going to do this. And I told them, and they were like, do you have a better plan than that? And I was like, no, I'm pretty much all in on this. And they were like, well, you've only really built the one motorcycle. So what now? And I was like, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to get after it. So I started a company. I actually sold a bike, a custom build to somebody, and rented a shop and moved in and started the project and realized real fast I had no idea what I was doing.
Nice.
And there was like the real pressure of, this isn't just for fun anymore. Like, someone's giving me money. Mm-hmm. I have a duty to them to deliver. And so I actually canceled the contract, shut the entire business down, and looked for apprenticeships. And I was like, if I'm going to do this and be serious about it, I got to learn not just the craft, not just to become kind of a master of the craft, but I got to learn about the industry. I got to learn about
Good for you, man.
Yeah, thanks. So how do people make money? How do they lose money? What are the distribution channels? I mean, even basic stuff like where do you get supplies from? You know, because you can go to Lowe's, but you're paying, you know, way over the top of what you should be for, you know, for things like grinding discs, cutting discs, all that kind of stuff.
I hear they build subs now with stuff from Lowe's.
Yeah.
Really?
There's some
You didn't see
stuff. There's some
Did you
stuff on Tesla's bill of materials that is from.
That comes from Lowe's?
It comes
Lowe's
from
and Home Depot?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so I reached out to like, man, I think like 25 or 30 different shops. 2 responded. And I was like, I will sweep the floors. I will work for free if I can come in. I interviewed with one and they were like, nah, this ain't going to work. And then I met this guy. His name is Mike Cole, Copper Mike, down on Long Island. He had been on Discovery Channel a couple times and all this stuff. And he was basically like, all right, be here at 6 a.m. and we'll talk. And like, I'm in Albany. He's in Long Island. So you're talking at least 4.5 hour drive.
Yeah.
So I show up.
Did you go the night before and sleep in your car?
No, man. I went that morning, and I rolled in, and we just like hit it off immediately, like just like we had known each other forever.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "All right, you can start Monday." So that was like a Friday. So I went home, and I was very fortunate that my parents are from Brooklyn, so my grandparents still live there, my uncle.
Oh, nice.
And so they were like, you can come crash with us while you kind of figure this out, while you work for free, which none of them understood.
It's a tough sell.
Yeah, it's a tough, I mean, the apprenticeship in general is kind of a lost art of what an apprentice is. I mean, like tattoo apprentices, they pay the mentor to do the apprenticeship, and it's not cheap usually because they know like you're going to be pretty much a thorn in my side.
Yeah.
While I teach you this craft that I've spent my whole life learning. But so I didn't have to pay, but and I'll be honest, pretty shortly after, because I went down and I had some equipment and stuff like that, so I brought the equipment with me. So he saw some real value in what I brought, and pretty shortly after starting, he started kicking me a little bit of cash. And when I say a little bit, I mean like $100-$200 a week.
Yeah.
But you know, it wasn't nothing, you know, and so I lived for free with my grandparents, and then eventually moved out to Long Island, and I wound up becoming his like lead foreman, lead fabricator, and kind of helped him run the shop. And I was there for like a little bit over 2.5 years before I moved back up here.
And so when you say fabricator, explain to me what that means.
Yeah, so a fabricator is generally, when it's referred to, it means metal. But it's someone who can take something from idea to finished product, working from a print or not from a print. So it's helpful if you can read blueprints and stuff like that. But it's basically, we take a raw piece of material or many pieces of material and build you a finished item with it.
Whatever that may be.
Whatever it may be, you know. So it's usually welding, cutting, grinding, machining. So machining, we usually mean like a lathe and a mill, whether it's computer controlled or manual, which we have both in my shop now.
Metal lathe,
CNC mill for doing 3-axis milling, manual mill. We're mostly a TIG welding shop.
Okay.
I actually had a couple certs. I've worked as a certified welder for a couple years, you know.
What's the other one? It's TIG and
MIG.
MIG
is the other one.
Okay.
Yeah. So one, like, it feeds wire automatically, and one you feed the wire.
I'm like, it's on my list to learn how to weld.
Yeah,
I want to learn how to weld so bad.
Come on down, man.
There's
I
your
will.
new apprentice.
Yeah,
Come on
man.
down.
I'll come work for free.
Yeah, please do.
Just go to Home Depot and buy the equipment.
Yeah.
You don't need him.
Get a YouTube video. I'll be
Yeah,
all set.
that's all you need. You know, you start a YouTube channel, you're good to go. But yeah, so that, I mean, so we would literally build you an entire motorcycle from the ground up. Every piece, every spacer, all that kind of stuff. But we went to every show in the country. And so I learned pretty quickly, like, the value proposition of going or not going to shows. And it's basically like, you know, so my big takeaway from that apprenticeship was you basically make money one of two ways in the industry. Either you're a service shop and every now and then you sell a custom build, and that's great. You're probably bolting on other people's parts, which there's nothing wrong with that. Or you're a manufacturer of parts. And the custom bikes are basically your catalog. So you build a custom bike with your frame, with your handlebar, all that stuff, and you use that to then go to shows and sell the parts so that you can go in your garage and install them.
Yeah.
So after I finished apprenticing, I looked at that and I said, where do I see myself in this world? And I was like, it's not that I'm a bad mechanic, but it's not really my unique value. I believe, I've been told by my mom, that I'm a great fabricator. So I looked at it and I said, I want to be on the parts manufacturing side. And then had this idea for this frame, this integrated suspension frame, and kind of went down that rabbit hole, and then got a couple patents, and I've been developing that for a few years, and finally kind of sort of getting close to being able to make some money on it.
So do you ride your own bike?
I do.
That is effing amazing. I'm trying not to swear.
That's Mike's dream.
Oh my God, it's freaking amazing, man. I love it. Yeah. That's awesome.
I'm here to help you with it if you ever want to do it, man. Man. It's funny because I always said, when I was starting, if you went in, and I'm not saying when I was starting in the 60s, when I was starting in the late 2000s, if you went into a chopper shop or a motorcycle shop and you couldn't tell the difference between different Harley models, if you didn't know the difference between a pan head and a shovel head, knucklehead, what year was the last year of the shovel head, all that kind of stuff, they would throw a wrench at you and be like, get out. And they would throw a few other words in there too. It's an intense...
have a nice day?
Yeah. Get out, have a nice day, come back whenever you want. And then I eventually found this guy in Long Island that was the opposite. He was very welcoming, and if you think about it from a business perspective, it's great if you're this hardcore biker guy and whatever. It's a horrible business model. And especially if you're trying to get top dollar, the hardcore biker guys, they don't want to spend a dime. They want you to do it because you love it, and that's it. The people that have money expect a customer experience. So you got to kind of walk in both worlds. So I always said, if I ever had my own shop, I would do whatever I could to help other people. And, because even I had questions and people would be like, all right, go figure it out. I'm not going to stand here and tell you how to cut axle spacers. Go figure it out.
Right.
And so I've had my shop open technically for coming up on 10 years this May.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it hasn't always been my full-time gig, but for the past 3-ish years it has been. But I've had people come in and be like, hey, someone referred me. I have to take a weld cert and I've never welded aluminum before. And they'll come in and I'll work with them for 3 or 4 hours, for free. And I'll work with them for 3 or 4 hours and then they'll go.
That's cool, man.
And stuff like that. So I try to be a resource when I can,
So how long, Terry, did it take before your parents were kind of like, okay, maybe he's on to something?
What year is it now? It's been a minute. Listen, I'll be honest. So I went to school partially on a scholarship. So the other half I was on the hook for, and I was very fortunate that they agreed to pay that. So when I graduated early, I graduated in 3.5 years, because I was in a big rush to start this life or whatever. So when I told them that this was going to be my path, my expectation, I didn't think that they were going to be like, get out. But I did expect them to go that's fine, you're on the hook. You've chosen to do this, so now you can pay those loans. That's on you. And they didn't. They were more than fair. And really, they were coming from a place of concern, which was, you've never done this before. There's no reason why you should expect you can do this. So what's your plan? And they expressed that concern frequently. But
because you had a solid plan.
Yeah,
you were very good at communicating.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, at one point I was sitting down with my dad and we were having coffee or whatever, and he goes, "Let me ask you a question." He goes, "What makes you so special?" And in the moment, I was like, "Wow, how could you ask me that? I'm your son. I'm great, Because
mom's been telling me my whole life I'm special.
That's why he asked.
He was like, "Who do you think you are?" No, so. But then like it took me years to understand what he was asking, which is like, what's your unique value proposition? Which is something we talk about with customers in the incubator all the time. Why are people going to come to you when there's, you know, I don't know, however many motorcycle builders around the world? Why are they going to come to you? And it took me a couple of years. It took me that apprenticeship to figure that out, to realize it's not just like my style and the way I design and build things. It has to be more than that. You have to know what your differentiators are that drive your business. And so then when I had the idea for this frame, and I was like, man, I did a bunch of research. I thought I could patent it. I eventually got the first patent and then the second patent, and now we're onto the third patent. They've kind of, it took a while. I always say to Bob, like, no one in public is going to say anything to me that can cut me down like the way my family has. And I mean that in a positive way. Like, if I could prove it out to my family, if I could pitch it to them, they're going to fire the hard questions at me. And then when I go out into wherever, I'm like, yeah, I've dealt with this already. You know, so that's kind of, it took that process for them to see. And the other part was the technical end. Like, my dad is not a blue collar mechanical guy. Like, he could do stuff around the house, but if his car breaks, he takes it to the mechanic. If there's something major in the house, he calls someone, you know? So for me to be like, yeah, I'm going to teach myself to weld. I'm going to teach myself how to be a machinist, you know, taught myself CAD, taught myself design work, all that kind of stuff. It was kind of like each time I proved those things, they would see like, oh, he's serious about this. Like, oh, and then recently the first prototype that I built of my suspension system, it was included in a book from New York State on the history of motorcycling in New York State. So they asked if they could put the bike in their lobby. And so I was like, yeah, absolutely. So
cool.
Yeah, we just pulled it out of there actually last Monday, but it was in there for like 5 months in their lobby on display under like this monster piece of art above it.
Did they tax you on it when you tried to take it away?
It's a great question.
Not yet.
Why would you ask that, Mike?
I'm just kidding.
I did not donate it to them. I just gave it to them. But like as each of those things happened, my parents realized more. And it was cool too, like because it always went from I had these kind of harebrained ideas and all this stuff to it went to they would call me and be like, hey, we have this problem. Do you think you can make something? Hey, we want to do this thing. Do you think you could do this or that? And so it just kind of evolved over time. But I think you do have to prove that you're serious about whatever it is you want to do to be taken seriously by those around, especially if it's out there, you know, if it's kind of on the outlier of
well,
what
especially
people are used to.
I mean, to your point with your family, right? Because your family sees all those things that you go through, like the phases, like, oh, I was into hip hop, and then I was into death metal, and then I was into this, and then, you know, they see all those things, so they're just like, oh, this is just a phase, like he's gonna. So you know, I really feel what you said when you're like, oh, I had to prove it to them that I'm serious about this, like. You know, I know my family was just like, they saw me do 17 million things and change what I wanted to do every other day till last week anyway. But yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you guys come together?
Craigslist. He put an ad out. No, I'm just kidding.
Do they still?
You're not the only one with bad jokes, Mike. That's what I got to deal with.
You say my jokes are bad, man?
Objectively,
yes. So not Craigslist then?
No, T came through one of the accelerators I was running, and we actually pivoted him to bicycles.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Away from motorcycles.
Yeah.
Not to take away, but to add.
Yeah.
So,
which was huge.
Smart.
Yeah. It was
most of the things I do is smart. That's all.
He got the one thing.
That's the look that you have. It's not that we've seen it, just he's got that smart look to him.
Yeah.
And to give T credit, you know, he pushed back like everybody should, but he was coachable and he understood where it was coming from and why, because it has to be based in common sense and practicality in business, right? So,
yeah, and we've gotten more traction more quickly in the bicycle world than we did in the motorcycle world. Like developing the motorcycle was very expensive and very complicated because it's so much speed and such a high load case and all these things. And so we went through the accelerator, we did a bunch of interviews, and everyone in the interview, I think we did 12 or 13 taped interviews with potential motorcycle customers. And everyone in the interview said they organically brought up their bicycle. And so we watched it, Bob saw it, And he was like, why aren't you doing bicycles? And I was like, oh, because motorcycles are harder. And he was like, I want you to think about that for a minute. And I was like, it's a bigger market. And he was like, is it? And he goes, why don't you? He knew I was a numbers guy. So he said, why don't you look at and he had already done his research. So
Everyone's got a bicycle.
Yeah.
Everyone, right?
He already knew.
Yeah.
But he was like, you do your own research, look at the numbers. And we did. And like, even though it's one industry and the dollars are higher on motorcycles, the units, 500,000 motorcycles sold a year, 17 million bikes in the US alone. And he was like, you want to be in licensing, right? He was like, so do you want to license to the 17 million market or the 500,000? You know,
well, and also, fun fact, in New York State, you can rent out bicycles. You cannot rent out motorcycles.
Ooh, I didn't even know that.
Insurance. So like if you own a motorcycle and you want to rent it like they were doing like with cars and everything else, or like an Airbnb, but for motorcycles, because I looked into this. I was buying a bunch of motorcycles because I was going to do this.
Yeah.
And I should have checked the insurance requirements before I started purchasing motorcycles, because I found myself with a bunch of bikes and couldn't do what I want to do with them because the insurance companies in New York State will not insure you if you're going to lease a motor, if someone's going to rent your motorcycle for the day like you would a bicycle.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that because there's other states that'll let you do it.
Every state.
Except New York.
Except for New York and guess the other one? California.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was amazing. So anyway, no one takes off track.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What happened to all those motorcycles now?
I sold them actually. They're all like classic Hondas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it's nice.
That's cool.
But
They're in a museum.
yeah, my garage.
Me too.
It's a new not-for-profit.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, definitely a not-for-profit for sure.
Yeah.
So you guys pivoted into bicycles. That's amazing.
Yeah. But it was that kind of relationship that spawned what we're doing now. Because I had been through, I won't name them, but I'd been through some other programs in the area, and nothing really like, everyone was well-intentioned, I like to think, but nothing really spurred any change for me. And it was, from working with Bob and doing these things, we actually started to get traction and hit the road and do all this kind of stuff. And so we would stay in touch and talk about kind of these frustrations. And then we started working on a few projects together and products together. And we both saw it from different ends. I would see it from because another kind of revenue stream in our business is that we do prototyping for other small businesses. So you were talking about like, what is a fabricator?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people will have a really clear idea of their market. And they think they know what they want made. And then they will go and spend a bunch of money to have 100,000 units made. And then they will have 100,000 units that they don't know what to do with.
Right.
And so we kind of found a nice revenue stream of doing prototyping for people and working them through the design process of trying to do this kind of design process of product market fit and then align that to the features and then hand them off to a large job shop when they're ready for that. Because large job shops, they don't want to make one of anything. It's not cost efficient for them. They want to make hundreds or thousands. The equipment we buy, the way my shop is set up, we're efficient to make one. We can make one of something. There's no problem. And so we found a nice little niche for ourselves. And then Bob was also working with similar startups who were in the product space, and they were looking for a commercialization plan. And he would see a similar thing happen where people would sink money in, put a lot of resources in, and never investigated product market fit. Do people want this? Did I design the right features into my product to give people the right benefit?
Mm-hmm.
So we would get together and just kind of share stories about this. And then eventually we were just like, yeah, we should just combine forces and do this to try to get out there and help get people the right resources at the right time and help them actually get to market.
Well, and it's interesting too, because we actually were just talking recently about doing like a more of an investigative piece on incubators and accelerators, because I just feel like there's so many of them. I hear about them, they come and go, and I'm just always like, are they effective? Like, are they actually helping people? Are they actually getting businesses off the ground? So it's like really excited to hear about your thoughts on that.
Well, I think, I'll go back to the well-intentioned, right? A lot of them are founded or formed under academic or government money. So And people don't understand that when it's free, it's not really free because you have metrics to live up to. That academic or that government has certain metrics to hit with their money. So they're not always focused on you getting your product to market, but putting you through the program because they need numbers. That's what we're trying to break. This is all privately funded between our companies. Like there's no other money. If we don't make money, First Strike Incubator is completely funded by us. If we don't make money with the products we're taking you through at some point, it won't last.
Are you saying that the private sector is going to be better at doing something than...
I'm a hardcore capitalist.
I love it.
And I've been in both, right? I was the EIR for the state. I've been at numerous universities. Government and academics are a great place to start. Their problem, and I've said this in other media, so this isn't new. They get the handoff wrong. I need them to build it. They need to get out of the way and let people that have actually done it run it. And that's my biggest problem with all these other programs is they have people in position of authority who have never started a company, have never taken the risk.
Yeah.
But they're giving other people advice like they have been there. And that really just pisses me off, excuse my language.
No, well, we say far worse on the show sometimes. But I agree with you 1,000%. I see, quote unquote, like business advisors that never owned a business. And I'm like, unless you've been working for free, sleeping in your car, worrying about how you're going to pay that light bill, like how can you tell me what to do in these situations?
They're leasing Lamborghinis and
and then throwing them on Instagram. Right? Yeah, what the fuck? It's crazy.
You follow me on Instagram? Yes. That's what I do.
But that is the mission that we have. It isn't that we're not going to fail because if you come, and I've met people who say, I never failed in business. Then you've never run a business. Right. Because there's no way you can never fail.
Yeah.
No.
And I fail every day, by the way.
I fail constantly.
You do, by the way. Part of the, I never shut up about it.
But that is, that was the thing that kicked this off for us was that we would get together and have a beer and be like, I can't believe this, that, or the other thing. And I had been through, like I said, a few programs in the area. None of them moved the needle for me.
Yeah.
And yet they hit me up constantly for, can you respond to this survey? Can you do this? Can you do that? And it was like, finally the light bulb went off that was like, yeah, this is how they get their funding. It's a numbers game. The fact that I didn't actually make progress is irrelevant to them. And then you go through, at one point, we were starting to put together a fundraising round because I thought that's what we needed. Turns out it's not. Best way to raise money is to have revenue. We had been talking, some of the advisors that I had been working with were giving me advice on pitch decks and putting this together and that together. And then finally I was like, have you ever raised money? And they were like, not successfully. And I'm like, what?
But here's how we think we should do it.
Yeah.
That's a binary question, by the way. That's a yes or a no.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing? You're even there's some place in the area that I did a pitch at like a thing for in a room that was supposed to be filled with angel investors. And angel investors is a very specific term for they invest in pre-revenue companies. 0 revenue. You are in development. It is seed funding. We know now from my conversation with Bob, there was not one angel investor in that room. There are a lot of people in this upstate New York ecosystem that call themselves angel investors. I've met with many of them. They will not even think about investing until you have revenue. That's not angel investing. So I was pitching to a room full of people that were poorly matched to who I was, if there was any accredited investor in that room at all. They use my pitch deck as a template for people running through that program.
Wow.
Now, it was a good pitch deck, but I raised $0 with it. So why are you using a deck that raised no money?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also the deck was too long, for sure.
Yes, it was. Like your answer to the first question. I think I grew a beard.
Oh, everybody's got jokes.
I think I grew a beard during that.
Oh, man.
So, quick question.
Yeah.
T, how long have you been growing the beard for?
Like 2 years, I want to say. So I'm not shaving until I make money off my patents.
Nice.
So I grew my beard out once before, and it was before I got my first patent. And I said, I'm not shaving until I get my patent.
I think I'm going to not shave until he makes money on his
I
patents.
love this for
That's
you.
only 2 years?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I've always had a beard, but it was short. But this is probably like 2 years.
I just had an oops the other day, and that's why my beard is as short as it is right now. I'm really upset about it.
I was going to say, I thought when we saw you at that thing in Saratoga, I thought your beard was, because you were there, right?
Oh, which one? Which thing?
Oh,
The
so
CTE thing?
Yeah.
yeah, so I met T. We actually went to school together
Oh,
a
okay.
long time ago. We're next to each other at the BOCES, the TEC event.
Oh, no shit. Yeah, you had the bike frame on the
Yes.
thing. That's
Yeah.
right. Holy moly. I was just
Yeah.
thinking about that when you started talking
Light
about...
bulb.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all coming together now.
I'm a
So
little
we started
slow on
talking.
the
I'm
pickup.
like, man, you look familiar. And sure enough, it was T.
That's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we went to high school together. Yeah.
Yeah, I literally just the other day I was like, I was going to an event and I was like, I'm just gonna trim this little thing here, and I don't know what the hell I did, and I was like, so then I tried to fix it, had another oops. Next thing you know, and I had to go to my barber. I'm like, can you fix this stupid face?
I've been there.
And and now I look like I got a baby beard now. So
That was just 2 years.
I know.
One day I'll hit puberty.
Yeah. You'll get there.
I'll get it sooner or later. My voice just cracked. So the accelerator. Tell us about that.
Incubator.
Incubator,
So
I'm
we'll
sorry.
take idea and it has to be a hard good, so it has to be a physical product.
Okay.
You can have an idea or your MVP or a prototype, or bring it to us, and we run you through kind of curriculum and workshops to get user experience. Because the one thing that T left out of that very robust description was a lot of people might have the target market right, but they don't get how the user uses the product right. So we do a lot of that work. We always have. My biggest failure as a company was a product I patented and designed and completely effed up on the customer experience.
The user experience itself.
Absolutely.
So like in the tech world, we're going to call that the user interface.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like
it's the same thing, right? Because no human really looks at directions.
Interesting.
So
That's
if they're
true.
going to pick up a product, we got to design it so they kind of get close to how to really use it, to optimize.
Interesting.
Yeah. And too many people wait until later in the game. Or they do the opposite where they're constantly tinkering. Oh, we're going to do this. But they're tinkering to their vision.
Mm-hmm.
So they, it's a good starting point for the way you would do it, the way you want to do it. But the moment you have, I would even say proof of concept product, you should be getting that in front of a user because they might pick out things that were not even on your brain.
That's what we did with our software that we're designing, that we're getting ready to launch as a service. Is the same thing as we went out and got some beta testers of people that weren't even in our industry, but would be the kind of people that we would go after. And they did. They gave us a lot of great feedback.
Yeah.
And we made it less clunky because of them.
Yeah. And too many people will just wait if they do it at all. They wait too long.
I have literally no skills except I'm a really good listener.
That's not true.
That's a good skill.
That's what you need, because none of us are experts to the market. The market wins all the time, right?
Yeah.
If you know how to listen to the market, you can win more than lose. So that's the goal.
And if you're a startup or a small business or a solopreneur, whatever you want to call it, we don't have the resources that Nike has. Nike can, and even Nike has an end to what they'll put into R&D.
Mm-hmm.
They'll invest in products and then go, that one's a loser. We're not doing it. If you're a startup, you're a small business, and you're going into a product, you either need to learn very quickly that the product is not worth going into, or how to launch it and get to market. You don't, it's just a fact. You don't have the Nike resources to do 19 redesigns and decide whether or not it's worthwhile and how to get to. You got to kind of get, we always call it your alpha product or your beachhead product, which is, it may not be where you ultimately wind up, but what's going to get you to revenue the fastest so that you can start building out that beachhead.
That's the easiest way to raise money, is after you sell something.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
Yeah. If you got numbers and you can show, we've got 5 million people spending $1 on this every month or whatever it is.
So how many products have you guys put through the incubator?
We're on the second cohort's going to have 4 products in it, but our first cohort we started really small. We had 2, and we are commercializing 2 products, which we don't expect all the time.
Yeah,
it kind of shocked us
to have 2 come in and 2 going forward.
Hit 1,000, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because we always do everything as a test first to make sure that what we're saying gets communicated in the right way to people that don't have this experience. So
and these are all. I don't know how you probably can't talk about what the products are, but these are physical products. Like, are they different sectors? Are they a specific sector? So it's like kind of all over the
It's
board.
agnostic. It's just whatever product
Interesting.
can be physically made, though. We're not touching software in this incubator.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of that in the past.
And do you stay with hard products just because of scalability? Like once you have a prototype and designs, you can now find a manufacturer that's going to be able, like, is that why you stay with hard products or?
Well, we're really using his skill set as a fabricator, right?
Okay.
'Cause it is a unique skill set. We've worked with a lot of fabricators over the years. His combination of design and the actual build kind of gets us a better conversation around the product, but also we're not always looking to go to the manufacturer, right? We can tech transfer it out. We can license it out. Some of our clients want to go to market as a new company. So that's where that third piece of our incubator model is, that we'll put some money up for ownership with the product creator and bring it to market in whatever, any of those buckets.
That's cool.
Yeah. You know, we're trying to have like a clear pathway of, like Bob was saying, like if you're state funded or wherever you get your money from, if the output doesn't matter and you have no skin in the game and we have no skin in the game and we push you both through the incubator and then whatever happens, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But you know, we will be very honest about the fact that like the incubator to accelerator to funding kind of funnel for us is our draw to try to find products that we want to work with and ultimately have shared risk in and then shared reward. Another big differentiator is that our incubator and accelerator are paid programs. So we will charge for those services. And there's a very real reason for it. And it's not to line our pockets because we're not charging that much. It is so that it is so that you have skin in the game. Sure. You now owe something to us and we now owe something to you. So we've worked with small companies that go through and they do this incubator, that one, and they're all free. And maybe they'll go 2 hours to this one. We are going to meet. It's going to be short. It's going to be fast and fair. It's going to be 6 weeks. We're going to get you and we're going to get you out. And then you can make a go, no go decision after that. But you are going to have deliverables that you have to act on. If you decide you can't or you won't or you don't want to, it's different when you've paid into that program because now you're like, I expect some sort of metric from this. Yeah. And same for us. If you are now our customer, we are beholden to you to deliver on our end. You know, so it keeps it is the definition of a shared risk model where it keeps everybody at the table and honest.
It's also accountable.
Yeah.
People play. We live in a time of play entrepreneur.
Yeah, no,
right. 100%. Everybody's an entrepreneur if they have an idea.
Yeah,
the only or an
and then they rent the
or
the
a Facebook account.
Right.
Oh, that's true. Right. Social media makes you a genius everywhere.
Oh my god!
Until you have to string two sentences together in person. Right.
Right.
So we're also combating that because that kind of makes the universe a little fuzzy because you get a lot of information saying it's really easy. You know, I started my first company many years ago. I was 13, like a really long time ago. There was no internet. It's a lot easier to start a company now, at least the optics of starting a company, than really putting one together. Yeah. And I think that's what we're trying to cut through because there's a lot of great people out there that get lost in that shuffle of nonsense. Like, it is nonsense, but it's also, you need somebody to tell you this will never work. And we always talk about the three legs of a company, right? There's feasibility and marketability, which are fairly easy to convince yourself it's always going to work. Viability is the one where it always fails. Yeah. So why are you going to go down this road 5 years and figure out your price point will never match the market? So you're never going to make a living. Yeah. Like that's the things we're always, and people don't like that. People want to be patted on the back. And we don't want those people.
But in the end, you're actually saving them a lot of time and money or giving them a new idea to do it the right way.
Absolutely.
It's funny. I actually had a buddy call me a couple days ago and he hung up on me because he didn't like what I was saying to him. And he was asking me, he's like, I've got this opportunity in business, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sounds unethical, sounds shady as hell. And I was like, and it's a hard pass if that's coming at me, you know? And he was just like, oh, well, and then I started giving him a little bit more and he hung up on me. I was like, oh, sorry, man.
Isn't it wild how that happens? How you go like, no one's asked you these questions. No one's given you this feedback yet. Right. But that's one of the things we look for, especially as we walk through like incubator to accelerator to the actual shared risk part of it, is coachability is like the biggest thing. You can have a mediocre product. I mean, preferably not. But even if you have a great product, there was someone that we were potentially going to work with Bob wanted nothing.
That was you.
Bob wanted
to work
nothing
with.
to do with it
Not
from the
us.
start. I wanted to work with him because I liked his product. His product idea. He didn't have a product. I liked his product idea, and I wanted to make it. I thought it was cool. And so I mean, when I tell you I spent probably nothing short of 60 hours in person with him, going through every little thing, blah, blah, blah. He had zero coachability to the point where he would be like, it's going to do these 9 things. And I was like, it's not going to do any of those because that's not how physics works. Like, it's just not, it's not going to do those things. Like, we could make it do certain things, but, you know, we got to go over user interface and how people are going to use it and how you're going to sell it and packaging and all that. And he just had no coachability. And then, like, finally it got to the point where I realized it. And I was like, oh, we can't work together.
Did you realize it? Because last week you brought it up again.
I really want to make
we can revisit
I
it.
really want to make the product. It's interesting. I mean, I don't think it's like a home run product or anything, but it was just cool. But it was something Bob saw right away. And he was like, and it's great because he's like, I'll back you on this. He was like, but I'm just telling you what I see. And I saw it, but I just didn't want, you know, but ultimately it was something that coachability is a major factor in deciding whether or not we can work together in any capacity because of what you just said. If you're going to hang up the phone on me when I ask you some kind of obvious questions and you're going to be offended, it's not going to be a good working relationship.
Yeah.
That's also why we want fees, because it creates accountability, right? Like even us being held accountable, right? If you're giving me $1, if I'm doing it for free for you, you'll just be nice to me.
It's a favor, right?
It's a favor, but also you'll be nice. You won't give me any feedback like, that sucks, Bob. What you just said to me makes no friggin' sense. The moment you give me $1, you're holding me accountable. So we want both parties to be accountable to each other, and that allows for real communication. Yeah. Like honest communication. I don't want BS.
Yeah. Well, and when you said that, it made me think of like college, you know? Like when I was going to college, also a long time ago, at first I had like Tap and Pell that were paying my tuition, right? Well, then I failed a couple classes and they didn't give me that money anymore. And so I had to pay for my own classes at that point. And at that point, it's like, well, shit, I better do the work. I'm actually paying for this now at that point. So the accountability to your point, right? Like calculus, I took it 3 damn times, man. But the 3rd time I paid for it.
And you passed.
And I don't know if
Maybe
I did.
not.
Maybe. I mean, I did better.
Don't you use calculus every day in your normal
I
life?
was going to say, why were you taking calculus?
Quick, take this integral.
Yeah. Define a limit.
The limit does not exist.
Terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Calculus. Anyway.
So you guys mainly work with Capital Region companies, or are you able to work with folks all over the place?
Yeah, we have 3 models. One is in person, which we like best, but it doesn't work. So the first 2 products, one is based out of Europe and Florida.
Cool.
So they were not in the vicinity at all.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And our next cohort, I think 3 of the 4 are not local.
So tell me Cohort. What is Cohort? What do you mean?
It's just the group in the like whoever is in the incubator together at that moment. So that's kind of another difference is that a lot of these incubators, accelerators, they'll go like, we run our cohort 4 starts January 2nd and runs until.
Do they all call them cohort? I've just never heard that term used in that fashion.
I think most of them do.
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
It's just a peer group, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to learn as much from us. Or they're going to learn as much from the group, the interaction, than they're going to learn from us.
I mean, for the listening audience, I know what cohorts are. Right.
We were not
from that standpoint, I was like, no, not you guys, the listeners.
Calculus, though.
Nobody's joking.
I'll attack your calculus knowledge.
But like a lot of these other programs, they'll put a cohort together and then they say apply by this time, and then the cohort starts to move. Well, what our motto is, or what we're trying to implement, is a rolling application, and then we try to kind of structure the cohort with other people that we think are going to play well together. Whether it's a complementary industry, right? So you own a peanut butter company, you own a jelly company, you're both trying to launch. You know, let's see if we can put you in the same cohorts because you'll get more out of that.
Yep.
We're now in food.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anybody has a peanut butter or jelly company? Let me know.
I don't, but I have a farm and a bunch of animals. Can we get into selling some?
Are you doing meat shares?
We could do meat shares. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
I'd be interested in meat shares.
Lambs, pigs. Here we go.
They're going to open a petting zoo.
He's got one.
There's no money in that.
Got the alpacas, you know.
The alpacas, the pigs.
What is the difference between an alpaca and a llama?
Well, the size for one, llamas are bigger.
Are they?
And
More
they have
aggressive.
2 heads, don't they?
They have 2 heads. Yeah, one comes out of the back, one out of the front.
Dr. Doolittle, right?
I don't know a lot about llamas, but I do know that the llamas are bigger. They're more aggressive. They spit a lot more. They're like jerks, basically.
Interesting.
They're like emus. Emus are
Nasty too.
I got
yeah.
attacked by one once.
There's a TikTok account that Kristen, my fiance, follows. I think it's called The Useless Farm, and this lady has an emu actually. Emu. I don't know why it sounds emu.
Maybe it's the Plattsburgh in you.
It's those long A's,
Canada.
basically. But she's got an emu named Karen, and it's hilarious. The thing's just mean. It attacks her all the time.
That's too funny.
It's amazing. Yeah, check it out. The Useless Farm.
Yeah.
On TikTok.
So, Bob, I got to ask, what was your business that you started at 13?
A property
For all the
management-
kids listening here.
A property management and landscape company.
Nice.
How did
No grass cutting.
How did you pull it off at 13?
So unlike Mike, my voice dropped when I was 8. So no one thought I was 13. They thought I was older and in high school. So I got my baseball and football team together and I was like, I never want to work for anybody.
Nice.
So I'm going to go out and get some contracts and then you're going to work with me. And they're like,
Nice.
yeah, whatever. Yeah, go do it. And it lasted 8 years. It got me into med school, all that good stuff.
That's pretty
amazing.
sweet.
Yeah.
It was a good run. I should have stayed with it, but... And unlike T, my family has never accepted the fact that I have a job. And that is true. They do
What do you
not
mean?
support it. They've never supported this lifestyle.
That you have a job?
Yeah, they don't think I have a job.
Oh,
You mean
yeah.
like your parents? Like your
And my cousins and uncles and aunts.
So it's always great.
not like your kids.
So they ask you this question like this: what exactly do you do?
Especially at Thanksgiving.
Yeah. what is it you do? I bet
You got one more to get through and you'll be all right.
Oh,
But
man.
that keeps me strong
Yeah.
and humble. So I don't know what I do.
So what do you guys? And I know that we're. I don't want to keep you too long, but I just so many questions I can ask you guys. Obviously, both of you have a vast amount of experience in being entrepreneurs, the lifestyle, business owners, some blue collar, some not, right? So what do you think the biggest challenge is that you've had to overcome in your careers?
I think it's what's next, right? You almost have to be futuristic. We don't have economy of scale to weather any storm. And a lot of our friends went under during COVID. And COVID's not an excuse for everything. But people aren't aware of what could happen. I think that's always something that keeps us all up at night, all of us in this room and elsewhere. I think the bigger one is people are told by people that don't actually pay their staff and have to make money to go all in all the time. And our counsel is always don't. Keep a job. Because the moment you stop working and you need this company to make you money, all you think about is money.
Yeah.
It's not your highest level of work then, right? Because you're in the back of your head, it's like, I need money.
You can start to make bad decisions real quick.
And you make really bad decisions.
Yeah.
So we always say, do it as a side hustle to begin with. What's wrong with that? This all-in thing doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say for me, one of the big ones is, we talk about failure a lot. And we even say, if you're looking at incubators, accelerators, or business counsel or consultants or whatever, in whatever stage you're at, ask them questions to find out if you're a good fit. And one of the big ones for me is, what are some failures that you've had? What's been your biggest failure? Because if someone says, well, I've never really failed, you got nothing for me. We're not the same. And so one of the big things for me is getting back up from those failures. And we talk all the time about people that are you just need grit. And it's not, to me, it's not just grit. It's not just grit it out. Because sometimes you do have to know when to shut it down or when to walk away or whatever it is. But it's also going, what's the larger indication from this failure and how do I move forward with that information, right? So in design product testing, you look for failure, right? Mm-hmm. You look for fatigue stress and cracks and all these things. If I would use the example of Formula One cars. They got all the resources in the world. You name it, they got it. Those cars have to last one race. They break. So you can have all the resources and do the best job. Things are going to fail.
Mhm.
So how do you move forward and get back up from those failures as a small business, as a startup, something like that? That's been a big one for me.
And knowing the mission of what you're trying to do. And I love small business. I use small business experts, and I'm going to say because they're small business operators
Mhm.
in a lot of my classes, because they understand cash flow better than anybody. If you own a pizzeria, you know every cost that's going through your shop all the time. They're phenomenal. I think the thing that they get sold a lot of is bigger is always better, and I'm going to always disagree with that.
Yeah.
If you're at a place where you have a robust network and repeat customers, bigger isn't always better. And I think some of these fallacies we're going to try to break as much as we can because it's untenable to most people.
Mhm.
Every company can't scale. Just saying.
Yeah, and scale doesn't look the same for every company.
Right.
You know, we had a meeting a couple weeks ago with a very well established and very smart PhD doctoral engineer, and he's been a consultant his whole career, and he's had a great career in it, and he decided he wants to get into production and actually make things. And I was like, "You're going the wrong direction."
Normally goes the other way.
And he was like, "No, I really want to do this, blah, blah, blah." So full support, started firing questions at him, and the things that he wasn't thinking about was, how are you going to distribute your product? How are you going to package your product? I always say to people, like, we'll go through the design exercise and they want to do this, this, and this. I'm going to design this thing that's 84 inches tall. How are you shipping it? Because now it's freight. You're not shipping it, 6 foot max is what you usually get. 84 inches, you're not shipping that. That's got to be shipped freight now. So now you're shipping it on pallets. You know what I mean? Like all these things stack up.
Which most people wouldn't even know that, right? Like I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things we try to do is ask those questions quickly and early on, because that will affect the design of your product. So like that person that I just talked about, that's a real person. His product is now modular and can be shipped in pieces and assembled on site. So like we move them quickly into what is the right solution for your product to get you the revenue. But a lot
when
of
it's possible.
When possible, yeah. Of course, there are some limitations, but that version of like what is scale to you, like that's the reason that if you come to my shop, which I hope you do, you're welcome anytime. The equipment that I
Bring
buy,
bourbon.
yeah, please.
Just saying.
Bourbon, all right.
The equipment that I buy is designed for doing prototype runs of things. If we had a $300,000 5-axis CNC mill, that needs to be running 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week to make money on that. So like technically my machine is running right now while I'm here, but that's not always the case. But if you have that equipment, it needs to run. That is, you have to be there. You have to be at scale. Someone that we were working with was like, how big of equipment do you have to get to cut these things in? Because I cut his pieces in multiple parts. He said, how much to do it in one thing? And I said, probably about $200,000 to get something that big. And he was like, there's no way. I sent him the link to the piece of equipment. I was like, this is what you need if you want to.
Right.
I was like, we do it this way, and it takes an extra step, but it doesn't really take that much longer, but it gets it done kind of thing. So letting people grasp that of like, what is your value add? What do you bring to the table? And how do you commercialize that? Because for me, scale is not huge manufacturing. It's being a design prototyping powerhouse to where we can license and sell and go to market that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need, a 500,000 square foot manufacturing shop to do that. I can be lean and mean and move from project to project, week to week to do that. If I wanted to take my bicycle frames and go, all right, we want to go to market and compete with Trek. Do you have $200 million burning a hole in your pocket to do that? Because Trek's not making their frames here. They're made by a company called Kinetic Bicycles, and they're made overseas. 99% of bicycle parts are made in Taiwan or China. So what is my unique value? It is the design, engineering, fabrication, prototyping of my system. How do I make that, get it in front of a large manufacturer, license and sell to them? I move on to the next thing. That's my version of scale. For if you wanted to start a widget company, your version of scale might be, how do I make $100,000 a month and go to market? It's possible. But figuring out what is your unique value and what can you do with your resources to get to your commercialization path.
Licensing.
Now, do you have any help to you run a shop, or do you have any employees?
I don't right now.
No.
I'll be honest, I've been trying to find someone for about 6 months. It's tough, as I'm sure you know. Especially because a lot of the stuff we do has very high attention to detail. So we do a good amount of architectural metal fabrication. So not like railings and stuff like that, but like things that are super high-end one-off pieces. So like we're machining these brass bar latches right now. Made this like crazy brass sink for a corner out of all sheet brass brazed together and all this stuff. Crazy shower door, bars, vanities, stuff like that. Which is a cool market to be in. And kind of what Bob was saying about like, you don't necessarily want to quit your day job. The majority of my stress comes from doing that stuff. That stuff pays for me to do the bicycle fabrication prototyping. But the bicycle stuff doesn't stress me out. The motorcycle stuff doesn't stress me out. The home designer that's buying a very expensive sink and wants it yesterday stresses me out.
And wants it perfect.
And when you say perfect,
Right, like,
I mean like,
yeah.
So we literally made this monster, super cool nickel-plated shower door. Design firm is in LA. They sent me, a million different design specs and all shit. We designed it in CAD, sent it to them, approved by 9 people, all this stuff. Came back, plating was a little off, rejected. Remaking. Now, I will say, what I proposed to them was a different design that would not have had these issues. They did a little bit of value engineering. I compromised. Shouldn't have. And it bit me. But when you say perfect,
Yeah.
it is perfect, or pardon my language, it's shit. And that's what they expect. And so to find...
Yeah, there's no close or close enough, right?
No,
Like,
and there's no... And like a lot of this stuff is bare metal. So like this brass sink, I mean, I've spent days plenishing out little hammer marks because there's no body filler, there's no paint. Like if I build you a hot rod or motorcycle gas tank, I can be a little bit off because it's going to get bondoed, skin coated, sanded, primed, painted. You'll never see it. Natural brass sink that's polished, you're going to see everything. So like it literally has to be a perfect panel. And it's tough to find even skilled craftsmen and women with that attention to detail. So that's been my challenge in hiring. But hopefully, if you're out there listening.
Mike's going to join.
I'm going to come work for you, for free, so I can learn how to weld. I need to learn how to weld so that I can build a hay wagon for the farm.
Oh, man, come down. I got you.
I need to. Yeah. And plus, I just want to know how to weld. It's freaking cool,
it
man.
Is fun.
Right?
Yeah.
Your goal's a hay wagon?
I
thought it'd be something cooler than that.
I need a hay wagon for the farm.
You'll start with the hay wagon, and then it'll be like, oh, now that I can do it.
Well, no, I know. I'll have like our front paddock will have all those metal freaking sculptures. You drive people's houses, just have all this shit out in the front yard.
We're doing one of those for a customer right now.
Are you really? Yeah.
Yeah, kinetic sculpture.
Yep.
It all moves with the wind. And
oh, yeah.
That
Well,
kind of stuff. Yeah.
That guy was slamming those air brakes.
He knew T was talking.
That's right.
Had to shut me down.
So, guys, I don't want to keep you here any longer. I could keep you here for hours more. If people are interested in the incubator, getting involved in some capacity, like how do they find out about it or learn more?
I mean, if you Google First Strike Incubator, right now the page is housed on my website, FabbroIndustries.com, while we kind of get everything up and running. But if you go to FabbroIndustries.com and click on First Strike Incubator, it'll take you there. You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram.
You are Insta famous. I knew it.
I'm not on Instagram. He is.
Then the incubator is. Got it.
Into the Instagram. But yeah, you can find us on pretty much all your social media. And if you have any questions or product ideas or whatever, just hit us up and we'll see what we can do.
Or need a custom motorcycle?
The
idea of being able to build my own motorcycle sounds so amazing to me. Like to be able to ride around on a bike that you built, like that just must be the coolest thing ever.
I gotta be honest. It's pretty good.
Yeah, right. Like
so I was fortunate. This is the last long-winded story. I'll probably make it fast.
There is a mute button, isn't there?
I feel bad because Bob's becoming like, it's probably the same thing my wife goes through where like I start talking and he's like, I know what story this is. Like I've heard this. I know where this is going. But I've been fortunate that I've done some like cool driving experiences before and I've driven some pretty cool supercars and couple Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Porsches and stuff. And it is a ton of fun. Like it instantly puts a smile on your face or on my face. There is nothing like riding a chopper. Like it is just a high unlike, especially when you built it or you worked on it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like it's just the coolest thing to me. Most people are like, whatever. But
I think Mike needs a motorcycle hay wagon.
We got you, man.
Oh, that's an idea.
You'll be building a motorcycle in no time.
We'll put a little something on there that I can like throw one of the pigs or one of the sheep in, and then we'll drive around town with it.
Trailer?
We got to reach out to like Discovery or something and get them to do a TV show about Fabbro and you building your own bike.
Build my own bikes
man.
with a farm animal sidecar.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll do a blue collar.
It's a whole different fetish, Mike. I don't know.
Guys, thanks so much for coming in. Really appreciate spending time with us. Great to
you.
meet you.
Thanks.
A lot of fun. And check them out.
Having us.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks everybody for following. Real quick, I do want to give a big shout out to MLB Construction. They just wrote us a big check so we could help raise some money for some scholarships down at HVCC. And so just want to say thanks to James Dawsey and Chloe and the whole crew over there that helped put that together. So
Sorry, I couldn't be there for the presentation.
Yes, that's right. You had the Ebola.
Yeah, I was beat up.
It happens. But thanks again, guys. And thanks, everybody, for listening. And you'll see us next week. We're interviewing Boom Nation, which I'm really interested to hear about what those guys are doing over there. So it's a national... It's actually workforce development. Maybe you could help them find someone for the shop. So they're not a recruiter. They're not an online forum, but they have this whole app online service that I know nothing about, really. We're going to learn more about it next week in the interview. But check it out. Thanks, everybody.